Thing is, whenever I do get to the UFC, I know I'm gonna make that run. Quickly, I'll get to the top 15, and quickly I'll be in the top five, be a contender for the title, and pretty soon you'll see me with that belt.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Commentator Podcast. And as always, I'm your host Sophia. And today we have a very special guest. You might know him from his exciting knockouts, and actually recently he just had an exciting knockout in LFA. So you might have seen him in LFA for a while. But now we have the honor and privilege of talking to Christian Natividad. And I'm gonna say he's one of the most exciting fighters to watch right now in his zone. He's a strong most so I hope you guys enjoy it. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, hit the notification bell so you never miss another episode. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to ask you is if you could tell me what this fight is, there's some heavy, hard-hitting shots that these guys are maybe getting stiff with, or they're exciting, they're entertaining. For you, why is it so important to go into a fight with we're gonna knock this guy out, or in training, like trying to make sure that something like that happens?
Yeah, funny, it's an interesting sport. I like to think of it as back in the days, centuries ago, it really was like and so taking it to today, society, watching a few people get knocked out or choked out, it's really sport for all these fighters. Especially opponents. So I always go in intentional expecting to get knocked out.
Now, with me saying that how you intentional, there's a lot of things that go into different things that you go into with your fights. And how important really is the mentality of anything that's balance in this fight and when it's like that? For you, why is it so important to have that mentality when you're fighting your opponents?
Because everything starts all up in here, with and that's not just for fighting, that's with really anything you do. If you don't have it up here, then you probably aren't going to be able to do it. So every time you go inside the cage, if you're not confident, if you don't have the intention of bringing some violence to the table, then a lot of times it's not going to go well.
Right. And I completely agree with you because a lot of fighters in our podcast, they say the same thing. They say, if you're not mentally strong, you're not mentally visualizing it too. You may not see it, but if you're thinking it, you're maybe not really studying it or visualizing it correctly. Now, we're gonna shift over to something else. How do you find time to think about it? How did you find it? Did you start out? Did you jump in? This is really what I want to know.
It's a funny story. So back when I was younger, you hear the market is not always treated such as I think it's the same for me. So growing up, I really enjoyed fighting. Honestly, I never thought a fighter in college would be that competitive. I've always wanted to become a professional skateboarder. Obviously, that didn't happen. So the way that I really got into MMA was back in high school. My brother, he started doing jujitsu, and then he had his first MMA fight. After his first MMA fight, he decided to invite me over to his jujitsu gym, and at that point, that's when I knew like I fell in love with jujitsu. Not fighting yet, and still at that point, I never thought I'd be fighting MMA. Anyways, fast forward a little bit, I go to college for a little bit and I was wrestling in college. And during my time in college, I still didn't think I was going to be an MMA fighter. But once I left the wrestling team to train a little bit more MMA, had my first amateur fight, and then had a few amateur fights, switched professional. At that point, that's when I knew, hey, I kind of have it in me to really make this a career.
Now, kind of leaning towards that, your whole life, you didn't think you were going to do this. Maybe you said, I was going to try this out, see where it goes, see where it takes me, right? And, a lot of the stories that I've heard, it's either one or the other. I'm born for it, or maybe, oh, I just want to try it. And for you, it's worked out pretty well, I would say so. So, with that being said, when we talk about you representing your culture, the Hawaiian, the Filipino culture, throughout your life and into fighting, why is it so important for people to know that you're really carrying that culture? And also for you, why is it so important to carry your culture with you on a day-to-day basis and into your fights and bring it into this type of industry?
So for me, family is huge, right? Family is everything. So you hear it all the time, blood is thicker than water. So when it comes to, uh, Hawaiian Filipino culture, since family is a big part of my daily life, doesn't matter what career pathway I decide to choose, my family's always got my back and I always got my family's back.
Now, kind of want to talk about your fights in LFA because there's some entertaining fights. I mean, we see a lot of the UFC fighters that come from LFA. They've done pretty well, and we know that you would love to be in the UFC, hopefully one day. And I can see it happening with all the knockouts you've been getting, how entertaining, how exciting you are. For you in the 125 division, in your own words, not from me as someone that runs a podcast, not someone from a journalist perspective or someone commentating, from your perspective, what makes you feel like you're different from anybody in your division, LFA, UFC, PFL, or any other company?
That's a good question. And the reason why I say that is because like when it comes to being different, all of us are chasing the same goal, like we're all trying to get UFC gold, which, I share that with every person on the UFC roster and a lot of people that are wanting to get to the UFC. Now the thing is, whenever I do get to the UFC, I know I'm gonna make that run. Quickly I'll get to the top 15 and quickly I'll be in the top five, be a contender for the title, and pretty soon you'll see me with that belt.
And hopefully we will. And I know eventually it will happen, hopefully sooner than later. But the one thing I do want to touch on, a lot of things that we see around today, a lot of fighters, is the group that you surround yourself with. It's your training partners, your coaches, your friends, your family. Sometimes having the right people is what can bring you to a higher place and get you to places that you want to get and you achieve those goals essentially. So for you personally, why is it so important to have the right crowd around you and not just have people, just say, oh yeah, Christian, yeah, go ahead and do it when it might end up hurting you. Why is it so important to have the right people in your circle?
So you probably heard this quote before, but it goes something along the lines: if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, you gotta have a team. And even though you go into the cage alone, it's definitely a team sport because you need the right people around you. Fighting is such a tough sport, and like I mentioned, a lot of it is up here, and your brain, your mind, it's always going to be playing mental games with you, and that's why you have to have the right support system because the times that you're feeling down, you have that support system to bring you back up.
Now, kind of playing into that part, we talk about the support system, the MMA lab, that gym. As someone that does the sport, as I do MMA and compete jiu-jitsu, it's important to be at a gym where you feel not just, walk into the gym and be like, yeah, I'm the best. And, you can feel that way, but also you need partners when sparring and rolling that are going to challenge you. And especially having fighters that train there, from your perspective as a fighter, not as someone that's just training just to be like, oh yeah, I'm doing this because I watch UFC or whatever. For you, why is it so important to have a gym like that? And especially in fight camp and outside of fight camp.
What makes the MMA lab different, in my opinion, is the culture that's behind it, right? Don't get me wrong, we got savages in the gym, we got high level fighters, but we're all looking out for each other. We all got each other's back. So, kind of like what I said, whenever I'm feeling down, I got my teammates to pull me back up. Whenever I need help with something, I always got my teammates to, lend out a helping hand. And being at the MMA lab, even though I've been there for less than a year, it's definitely my new home, and I can't wait to see, like what things are gonna come from just being at the gym inside, the fighting world and outside of it. Just being in that environment, I feel like I'm not just becoming a better fighter, but just a better human being overall.
Now, with you saying that, when we talk about how to manage yourself, how to remain calm, how to stay focused, for you, a lot of the things that maybe I commonly see is that, oh, yeah, I want to fight, but then you're not, as a lot of kids my age would say, like locked in, get locked into the moment and locked into the training camp and be like, okay, this is all I'm going to do. For you, when you look back on your first fight to now, what do you see the differences between the Christian from the first fight, amateur or pro, to the Christian now that just fought in LFA recently? What are those differences you see, and maybe the things you've learned from those fights?
Yeah, so back in my when I had my first MMA fight, I felt like I was living under a pretty high standard. And what I mean by that is my brother, he was an upcoming prospect. He um was a newly signed pro, and I think he was 13-1 as an amateur, and he had a couple fights as a professional before I made my amateur debut. So a lot of people were seeing me as, the younger Natividad. And obviously, since my brother was a stud, I felt like I had to live up to those standards. Don't get me wrong, I loved doing the sport back then, and I still love to do it now, but I felt like I put a lot of pressure on myself because I wanted to be, live up to the hype of, being the brother of my brother Kevin. But as far as comparing it to now, I'm more so just doing it for like the love of the game. And I know that's very corny to say, but if I was in the sport to make a lot of money, then, you know, in my opinion, that's fighting is not the way for me to make a lot of money. If I wanted to make a lot of money, I could just really commit myself in doing this full-time job that I'm currently working right now anyway. So I still work full-time at A1 Garage. I'm a accounts receivable supervisor here. So if I wanted to make a lot of money, just really pursuing that. When it comes to comparing it to now, though, I just enjoy doing the sport, and I think since I'm doing it more so as a hobby, I like to think as fighting as a hobby. But since I'm just doing it for the love of the game, it takes away that pressure that I used to put on myself.
Now, when we talk about pressure, a lot of that can, either crush you or make you better. For you, when we talk about, getting up to the higher standards and dealing with that pressure of, oh my God, like people say I have to live up to the hype because my brother and blah, blah, blah. You know, for you, how did you take that and try to grow yourself and make yourself as a better fighter and try to make people understand, I'm Christian, like I'm here too, like I'm doing my thing, like I'm here fighting too. Like for you, how did you take that and make it your own thing?
So, like you said, pressure isn't always a bad thing, right? Because pressure makes you work harder. Pressure, um, brings out the best in a lot of people. And I think in a lot of ways, it could bring out the best in me. Now, the only thing for me with pressure is when I put too much pressure on myself, that's where these mental games start to play a role. And it makes me a half second slower. It makes me a half, just yeah, it just makes me a half second slower. So, just living in the moment and being able to, rise to the occasion.
Now, kind of moving into a different type of question. When we talk about fighting an LFA, we talk about the platform that has. For you, why do you feel like fighting an LFA is such a big deal? Why do you think that's so important to be a company with that? And why do you think LFA represents you the best?
So LFA, in my opinion, is the number one feeder promotion to the UFC. So what a lot of people don't know is the LFA, or a lot of the champions in the UFC come from the LFA, like Alex Pereira, Henry Cejudo, Sean O'Malley. The list goes on and on and on. And the LFA is just proven to be one of the top promotions, at the regional level. So being fighting for the LFA, especially with my all nine of my professional fights being with the LFA, I know I'm on the right track and I know I'm destined for greatness, especially fighting, being with that promotion.
Now, kind of when we talk about how they treat you, we've seen a lot of other promotions kind of not treat the fighters as best as they could. For you, when we talk about, your next steps, for you, what are your goals for 2026, at least in fighting?
So getting to the UFC is a big milestone, right? Obviously, want to get to the UFC, and the sooner I get to the UFC, the sooner I can start chipping away at these fighters and get to the top 15, and then become a title contender, and soon one day be the champ. So, goal for this year, obviously, getting to the UFC. As far as how I get there. What I'm sitting on right now is contenders. Being 9-0 as a pro, a lot of my fights are tough fights, and they're all in the LFA. So once I get that contenders opportunity, get my contract, and hopefully make my UFC debut at the end of this year.
Now, if people wanted to, get into MMA, they want to do what you do. They want to fight, they want to take this seriously, and not the people that just watch YouTube and UFC, all that stuff, because that's not real. So, for you, what is that advice you give to younger athletes that, really want to do this and really want to take this far?
Yeah, so a lot of people think they want to fight until they get punched in the face. So just making sure you are actually absolutely passionate for it, like making sure um, you're willing to make those sacrifices that go along with fighting MMA. And so being an MMA fighter, like any other career, is very tough. It takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of effort, a lot of commitment that goes along with it. So if you're willing to, bite down on your mouthpiece and really dedicate yourself to it, then maybe take a shot at it and see what you get out of it.
Now, one of the last questions that I have for you is, being in that cage, it takes some guts. Like, not a lot of people can step in and do this. It takes a lot of guts to be like, yeah, when that cage door closes, I'm gonna go into a war, and I love it. Not a lot of people who can sit there and do that. For you mentally, when you're in that cage and it's a closed door, it's you, that other person, and that ref, you're looking across from your opponent. What is mentally going through your head every single time?
At that point, if I'm being 100% honest, the only thing that's going through my head during that time is air. I really don't have a lot of thoughts going through my head at that point just because I'm uh, living in the moment, and if I'm living in, like, if I have a bunch of thoughts in my head at the start of the fight, obviously, like I mentioned, you'll be a half second slower, which could cause you to fight. So just living in the moment and just being present and being dynamic.
Well, if any of the fans wanted to follow you, keep in touch with your career, how could they find you?
Best way to find me is on my Instagram. My Instagram handle is Christian Natividad. Hey, just keep an eye out. Pretty soon I'll be in the UFC. Pretty soon I'll be in the top 15, and pretty soon I'll be fighting for that title. So keep an eye out, baby. We'll make it happen here soon.
Well, I know it's gonna happen. I'm very excited, and I'm very excited to see if you get on the Contender Series or straight to the UFC. I really hope it does happen for you, because becoming one of my favorites now. I mean, we've had some exciting fighters on the podcast. I mean, Gianni Vasquez. I have to say, after 2 weeks after interviewing him, he got the call to the UFC. So you
Mhm.
never know. Maybe there's some good luck. But I appreciate your time, Christian, and I hope you have a good one, and I can't wait to see what happens.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Of course. Hey guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the interview with Christian. Remember to follow all of his socials, which they will be linked in the below of the bio of the video, so you guys can go check that out. And also remember to like, subscribe, comment, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another episode. But remember, the Hayabusa link is in the bio, and my code Sophia in all caps is there too. The new patches for Combat Talk podcast is officially out. So you guys can go buy them now on the Millions link, including the merch and the other streams. So I will see you guys soon for another episode. But for now, bye-bye guys.